Can you imagine nature in a crisis? Or do we ever realize that whenever we see sickness, it is within us, human beings, or within the human society, and that in nature there is no lack and there are no sicknesses? So much that we too are a part of this nature. So much that nature is governed by consciousness. And in this case, it's the most intelligent species that govern nature, or we'll say that nature is a reflection of consciousness, this consciousness being the projection of the most intelligent species. And that intelligent species in this case would be us human beings. So if this is the case and we don't see any poverty or lack in nature, then why is it that we are poor? Or we have militaries, the judiciary, as well as prisons, and we live in a world of haves and have-nots, and a world of uncertainties as well as fears. So what if I were to tell you that the national laws that we are having today, which govern our countries as well as comprise our constitutions and judiciary systems, are a violation of human rights because they are a violation of natural laws? Because when it comes to nature, all of us have equal access to water, land, oxygen, etc. So that every child that's being born is a reflection of the universe, because that child develops in their mother's stomach by utilizing resources which were consumed from the earth. And these would be the vitamins as well as minerals, meaning that every child is a manifestation of the earth itself. And for that child to be healthy as well as happy and productive, they will have to own land and as big as possible, because we all know that life has no borders or finite endings, but there are finite resources within the planet, meaning that without us being intelligent enough to rationalize or to use or fairly distribute these resources, we are actually creating poverty. And in so doing, national laws become necessary so that the corrupt may protect themselves by their greed, by having excessive abundance, while leaving others vulnerable for exploitation. This is what creates the capitalist system, or the idea of employees as well as employers. And yet in nature, we all have two nostrils, two eyes, etc., meaning that in nature there is no poverty, no lack. But why then do we subscribe to national laws, which we can all agree at the end of the day that they're a form of corruption? Because no country equally benefits all its citizens without neglecting others. And if we live in a world of military interventions, we are all at risk of someday having a nuclear war, which might end life as we know it. So this is to say that our education systems, as well as all other institutions of this world, be it political, scientific, as well as theological institutions, are to blame for the current human condition. One would even say that the main reason for this is because we have been conditioned to place limitations upon ourselves, and this can be also seen in the Pythagorean numbering system, which begins from 1 to 9. And in this case, 9 is used as the last number, but yet numbers can be traced back to consciousness expansion. And this consciousness expansion manifests itself in the physical world in the form of the golden ratio. And this golden ratio has no last number, meaning that it's not a form of limitations, but a form of external as well as eternal expansion. And it characterizes all of life, or in other words, nature. And this golden ratio moves from 0 to 1, then 1, then we'll have 2, 3. Excuse me if I'm being incorrect. I believe it's 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, then goes on and on and on. But the whole idea here is that you only add the last two numbers to get the next number. And if I were to place my hands like this, you'll see another numbering system, whereby this finger here is represented by the number 1, and it's masculine, and is connected with all the attributes of the number 1. And this one here is feminine, as well as it's the number 2. And this one is the third number, and this is 7, and this will be 12. So if you were to notice the numbering system which I just gave you, it skips certain numbers while giving the possibility of eternal continuation, because these numbers will eventually go to 1 billion, 8 million, but they would not be suspended there, because there is no such thing as a last number. Because if you were to add all numbers, you will still be left with the possibility to add, multiply, and forever increase. And so in reality, there's no such thing as a beginning and an end. These are all illusions created by consciousness switching from one state to another. But in reality, there is no such thing as poverty, nor lack, even in nature. The only time we'll have this is when we have two sets of people, good and bad people, cowardly as well as brave people, honest as dishonest people. So much that many of our institutions or professionals in this world will preach free speech, yet in reality you don't see politicians talking about history, sociology, many other topics which are not within the barriers or the classification of what politics is supposed to be. So much that with journalists, they do not even appear to have their own voice. They are simply a reflection of the political system designed to promote the same capitalist system which is already there and is exploiting many human beings. And so one would even say that no one can partake in a crime without being a criminal, meaning that all the poverty that we see in this world is a byproduct of us supporting this inhuman system which seeks to exploit human beings for profit. Because all know that the capitalist system promotes individuality, because in a world of collective existence, one would help the other so much that we wouldn't have to buy everything. And so the idea of us having to buy land is a crime against humanity, because every child, like I said, is a manifestation of the universe, meaning that for life to exist, one must be on land, meaning that it's our natural right to own land, because without it, we do not have a life, meaning that we are psychologically imprisoned by the system. And so the idea of creating prisons as well as the judiciary is just a means to protect the rich from the poor in order to expand this human exploitation. But if we were to analyze the nature using the golden ratio, you would see that it starts from, actually the golden ratio doesn't begin at 0. It simply shrinks into 0, then it expands again. So that would say that the 0 point is where matter meets spirit, because at 0 point you would shrink it further into the subatomic level or the quantum level, whereas at the point of 0 again you expand towards our physical level, which means that using this numbering system would end all limitations and be able to perceive worlds beyond this one, and in so doing would allow our consciousness to operate at its peak. And when this happens, our lifespans are extended, so much that we currently live in a world where people do not go beyond 100 years, and within this 100 years we are being exploited within poverty, manipulations, lack, uncertainties, etc. And yet if our minds were to operate at their peak, given that we are no longer using the Pythagorean numbering system which limits us, would have longer lifespans and live life to the fullest, something which today we do not have a means to, because as much as we are being nature, we're not governed by natural laws, instead by national laws designed by faulty and imperfect human beings who seek to create preferential positions for themselves at the expense of the majority. And so much that we would say, in order for us to achieve this, we need settlements which are designed in a form of a cycle, because a cycle is an emblem of infinity. It doesn't represent a beginning nor an end. And this is exactly the nature of existence or consciousness. And also a cycle can be divided into 12 zones, and these 2 zones will be divided by straight lines. And within this, we'll be able to create a society which will be used to study sociology, astrology, as well as astronomy. Given that we were to connect these cycles and create about 7 of them to 13, you would have a natural geometric pattern representing a light body or a light DNA, meaning that you would create societies which are a calendar system designed to teach infinite possibilities, where people would be requested or required to own land as well as to bring out the best of their own abilities. And this will also be achieved by us mastering the cosmos, meaning astrology. In so doing, there will be traditions designed to map the heavens for potential births, so that we may know which kids are to be born and what attributes are they bringing to this world. And we'll be able to utilize those attributes to the benefit of society as a whole. And another generation which was to come would benefit from this until we end all scarcity and we will have eventually no need for work. And in this form, we'll eventually be able to extend our lifespans, because in ancient times there were such that there were 7 initiation from the age of 7 to the age of 77 years. And at this age of 77 years, the gods will be able to create the entire array or spectrum of natural prototypes, plants and animals, and there are 144,000 of them. And in order for this to exist, represent one of the 144,000 attributes of the spirit, and these are love, honesty, kindness, etc. So in a world where these are in abundance, there will be no poverty, because care, kindness, honesty, love, etc. will be the main characteristics of the society, rather than selfishness, fear, greed, dishonesty, lies, etc. And these in turn become the manifestation of poverty, suffering, and all the evils that we see in this world. And so in ancient times, people were required or initiated or educated, in using modern terms, to master their own consciousness, so that they may reach the God status. And at that level, they would thus be able to live in a duality of this physical world in which they were born into, as well as the quantum worlds which they could access, due to them being or having unlimited access to their own consciousness. And this was also due to their numbering system, which was a golden ratio, which didn't place any limitations on their consciousness, compared to the system which we are using today, the Pythagorean system, which gave us beginnings and end, and thus create uncertainties, fears, and allows for the exploitive capitalist system to thrive. And that's the main difference between natural laws as well as national laws. National laws are designed to impoverish people, whereas as well as exploit them, whereas natural laws are designed to bring out the best in us, so that we can live life to the fullest without ever having to know evil.